As you guys know, we've started this new partnership with the Daily Poster in order to elevate some of their original journalism. You all know they do incredible work over there, following the money, telling the real story of how decisions get made in Washington. Now, normally we talk to David Sirota, but the Daily Poster is way more than just David Sirota. We have one of their great reporters on this morning, Julia Rock, who's got a couple of new stories we want to get to. Great to see you, Julia.
Good to see you, Julia.
Thanks for having me.
So you have a piece out about former Chicago Mayor Rahm Emanuel, everybody's favorite, and you detail what you describe, and we can throw this tear sheet up on the screen, as the corporate-funded rehabilitation of Rahm Emanuel. And effectively what you do here is break down the money that he's taken from various corporate interests, how that has potentially impacted some of the commentary that he has offered in mainstream outlets, and also, by the way, the fact that none of those mainstream outlets ever disclosed that he had these very direct conflicts of interest. Just break down for us what you found.
Yeah, so after Emanuel left the mayor's office in Chicago in 2019, he got a job with ABC News as a pundit, as well as a couple of, smaller gigs writing op-eds for places like Politico, The Washington Post. He had a really short stint at The Atlantic as a contributing editor. And during that time, between 2019 and when he was nominated for the ambassadorship to Japan a couple of months ago, Emanuel just kind of trashed key progressive policies, such as Medicare for All, a Green New Deal, as well as mainstream positions within the Democratic Party, such as raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour, something that Kamala Harris and President Joe Biden both support, making college more affordable and accessible. And during that time when he was writing those op-eds and appearing on ABC News to disparage progressives, he was also making quite a bit of money working for an investment banking advisory firm called Centerview Partners. He made about $12.5 million during the 2 years between being in office and being nominated for the ambassadorship. And we looked through the deals that firm was working on during that time. And as it turns out, a lot of those deals were with major pharmaceutical companies and fossil fuel companies. So some companies would be familiar, such as Gilead, which manufactured the government-funded COVID treatment drug, as well as Pacific Gas and Electric, the utility in California. So these are companies that, are involved in lobbying against the policies that Emanuel was trashing on TV and in the pages of mainstream publications. And, like you said, it was never disclosed that he was taking in money from this firm and working on these deals while he was writing those op-eds and going on those tirades.
It is wild. I mean, $12 million, that's good work if you can get it. And what I'm really looking at here was that what you're pointing to in the disclosure is that during that exact time, whenever he was in the media, this investment deals that they were working on were directly impacted by policies he was discussing. Is that right?
Can you say more about that?
Yeah, I mean, the Gilead pharmaceutical deal that you guys point to, just explain that a little bit.
Got you. Yeah. So policies that he is on TV talking about exactly are policies that would directly affect these companies and the things they're working on. So Medicare for All is a good example. I think, not a lot of people necessarily know this, but some of the biggest lobbying money against Medicare for All has been from the pharmaceutical companies. And, the same goes for a Green New Deal, which is less of a specific policy, but kind of a collection of climate policies. And the utilities, again, have been really important kind of sources of money for lobbying efforts against climate action. So, yeah, again, these policies he's talking about would kind of directly affect these companies. It's not some tangential or down the road impact.
Julie, you also have a news story out this morning about, look, we've focused here a lot on the fact that Democrats since 2006 have promised to, this time we're really going to do it, guys. We're going to negotiate with these prescription drug companies to get you lower prices, something that is such a no-brainer, something like 80 to 90% of the American people support it, and yet for all of these decades they've failed to get it done. But you point to there are other mechanisms that the Biden administration could use to lower pharmaceutical drug prices. So far, they have not pursued those avenues, but just lay out for us what tools are on the table for them.
Yeah, so one of the main tools at the Biden administration's disposal is called March-in rights, which is something that a couple of senators have really been pressuring the Biden administration to take on, as well as we reported today, Biden's current Health and Human Services Secretary has long supported the federal government doing this. And March-in rights is basically a tool that the federal government has if a government subsidized patent. So an example of this would be the COVID vaccines. We know that those vaccines were developed using patents that were funded with government research. If there's a product that was developed using a government subsidized patent and the company that has that patent isn't kind of distributing the product in a reasonable way or pricing it in a reasonable way, the government can essentially say, you're not using this patent correctly. We're going to give another manufacturer the right to produce this product. And this is something that can be used to lower drug prices. The Trump administration was opposed to using it to lower drug prices and issued kind of an 11th hour rule to prevent the federal government from doing that. But that rule, which is now actually sitting in the Commerce Department under Secretary Gina Raimondo, could be rescinded. So the Biden administration could essentially rescind that Trump rule that prevents March-in rights from being used to lower drug prices, as well as kind of deploy March-in rights to go in and start licensing these patents to other manufacturers to lower prices.
And what has HHS Secretary Becerra said on this in the past?
So, yeah, there are a couple of occasions where he's really pressured the federal government to use these rights. During the Obama administration, he was one of a group of Congress people to pressure the Obama administration to use March-in rights to lower drug prices. And then again, as recently as last year, when he was Attorney General of California, he petitioned Trump HHS Secretary Alex Azar to use March-in rights to make the Gilead treatment drug for COVID that I was talking about earlier more accessible to a broader population.
Wow. Seems like another candidate would be if this Merck pill for COVID ultimately pans out. They're wanting to charge like 400% of what it costs to make. This is, again, another drug that was developed using government public funding. So U.S. taxpayer funded the development, and then the company turns around and charges 400% of what it costs to make in a gigantic price gouging scheme. The Biden administration could do something about it, but so far they have chosen not to. Julia, thank you so much for breaking down these great reports that you have out this morning. And listen, guys, we give the pitch every week, but you and the whole team over there at the Daily Poster are doing such great work, actually focusing on the stories that matter in DC, the money that flows through this town and, creates some of the messes that we ultimately see. So if you guys are able, make sure you go over and subscribe to the Daily Poster so that you can be informed about all of those things straight away. Julia, thank you so much for your time this morning.
Thank you, Julia.
Thank you.
Hey guys, thanks so much for watching.
That's right. Just as a reminder, you can become a premium subscriber today. Watch the full show completely uncut, our reactions to each other's monologues. You get to listen to it. You get to ask us questions, all that good stuff. Link is right there in the description or at breakingpoints.com.
Best of all, great way to say screw you to the mainstream media.